I'd like to open the 222 Main Street Oversight Committee meeting for our August 16th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have to,
I don't know. if
I've
we do.
never heard that.
We have a quorum.
We have a
That's
forum.
Yes.
okay. First thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes from last time.
So I
Have
didn't
you-
actually put on the agenda the March 15th minutes, but I sent them both out. We didn't approve them
I
last
got
time.
two.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. So
I actually looked
can-
at them.
Can we do both of them?
Yes, we could do both of them, and I was not here at the 19th, so I didn't look at that one, so.
Okay. You were here on the 15th, I remember, yeah. Did you get a chance to look them over? Care to?
Yeah, let me just take a quick look.
Okay, so let's do the 19th first.
Okay.
And Ray, the town has funky new templates that they want you to use.
I saw that.
Including weird language for how you write a vote or something like that. Like upon a motion duly made and seconded, it was unanimously voted to accept the meeting minutes from February 16th, and that is copied exactly out of their template.
I saw the template, I downloaded the template.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything besides download it. It's just-
Yeah. Well, no, but I'm saying that's
Yeah.
why the minutes are
Yeah.
written that way.
The new format, yeah.
Put it into the artificial intelligence program, so. We'll go into all the minutes.
Okay, so you're good with that one?
Thank you.
Do you want to make a motion to accept?
Sure. I make a motion to accept the March 15th minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
All right,
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here, so I have no issues. I was tied up with the Crown Star issues.
And there's still nobody waiting?
No,
Okay. Should we do March 15th?
Okay, these are my, what was the one that we looked at before? The one that we just approved?
well,
What we
last
just
month,
approved was July, was the last. meeting.
Okay, so
This
we're
is the
going
meeting
backwards.
in March, which was a while back.
Got it. It's fine, me.
Okay. Did you want to make a motion? We're waiting for.
I am fine with them. I got some of the things like quick reviews, or
Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of March 15th.
second,
All approved, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So I wanted to point out something on the minutes is that we occasionally have people like Nancy James show up for the meeting and generally log out before we get to the point of comments. And about public comments, and previous to, years, we used to just let people make comments whenever an item showed up, that they cared about. And I don't know if, that's your discretion, but
okay,
keeping that in mind, offering to let people make minutes and make comments earlier in the process.
so. I think I understand what you're saying, Pam, and I agree, and just let me just spin it back, is
Okay.
that. We generally. Pursuant to this type of meeting, reserve comments from the public till after the rest the whole agenda has been completed.
Mhm.
Based on people's schedules.
Mhm.
It may be better. To provide comments at points after we discuss a particular item. So therefore, if they cannot attend the whole meeting, they can at least comment on the part they may be interested in.
Well, or I'm just thinking that when you get to the end of a when we talk about something, you can say, after we've talked about it, you can say, does anybody from
Yeah.
the public have any comments?
So,
I think it's a good idea.
Hey. Do you have the agenda in front of you?
I have a copy, so, oh, the next thing, which I didn't notice initially, but was gonna ask about is, there was that meeting on August 7th,
Ah, okay.
that I did not attend. I apologize. Can somebody please report out somewhat of what
So,
occurred?
so let's see, so they are. Do you wanna? do that, or-
They talked about this, I think it was a thing about the 60%.
Right, that
Holding
was the
basin
biggest,
characteristic, no. They're, they wanna try to, if till is thick enough, they wanna try to end in the till. Rather than go into bedrock if they can help it, because it's more expensive to go into bedrock. Scrap out. But the till has gotta be, I think they said, is it 10 feet or 15 feet? In order for
One
them-
second, 1 second.
do we have?
They said they tested the
Terry,
sill.
Yeah,
and
that's
it
Terry
was
Ackerman.
reasonably impervious.
Terry, can you hear us? She is showing, I can see her picture, but her microphone is not on, so I don't know if she.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Yes, can you hear me?
Terry, we can.
Hi Terry, how are you?
Terry's our board.
Rep,
select board.
yeah. So Terry, we are we have approved the committee, the minutes from the 19th. And March 15th, and we are now discussing the community update meeting of August 7th.
Thank you, great.
So I think I think there was two purposes. The first is to try to begin to sell the 60% holding basin to us, and to the stakeholders. Remember, it's only 60%, so we've still got at least two more shots to take a look at it.
I thought they implied that they considered it a lot more than 60% though, that they think that it's mostly.
Well, they're still gonna have to come up with the 95% and the 100%.
The purpose of that is that they want to actually, that the technology makes a big difference as to how you do the project. And the contractors each have unique technology for digging
I was surprised to hear that, actually.
the thing. So they want to actually have something that's robust enough to do an RFP. So that they
Okay.
can select a contractor for the next phase.
And I think the other thing is they want to talk about the phase 2 PDI, the drilling and the sampling locations. So that was, I really haven't looked myself at the 60% holding basin. I probably won't tackle that until the end of this month, but I did look extensively at the PDI for the phase 2 and all their sampling locations, proposed sampling locations, which I have here, and I've got actually a couple of questions.
That's another section on the agenda. Do we want to,
So.
you want to hear more about the meeting first?
So in the meeting, was the PDI also discussed?
It was discussed.
Okay, so,
Okay,
I mean, so it was a 60% was discussed with, they have two potential bidders with different technologies, so they make sure
at
that,
least two.
at least two, okay. So they want to make sure that these, what comes out of the 60% is substantial enough that they can do a request for proposal. And broad enough that it would encompass both, okay.
And they want to have a contractor selected basically by winter time so that they can be starting on this in the spring or summer. And they're gonna be injecting the amendments into the holding basin this fall and into the winter. So
Right.
they'll be prepared for that.
Right, and that's already been approved by EPA. So they'll do that, and then, once they get the amendments injected, they'll start building the wall.
That's the iron.
And we expect to have 100% remedial design, approved by EPA by then, certainly, I think. But, you know, we've still got a couple of design submittals to go. And then there's usually revised copies, so there's at least 2 more of these design submittals to cover the wall to go before they even get it approved by EPA.
And when you say supplements.
Hmm.
What are they injecting now?
It's divalent iron.
It's divalent, divalent iron. And water, they're injecting, it's just thousands of pounds of this divalent iron. And
It
it's
binds
gonna
up
have
the
about
uranium and keeps
70,
it in place.
Okay,
yeah,
And that's what'll be used outside the holding basin too. It's just that you're functionally fracking to put it in place.
okay,
And so they don't want to frack after they've built the wall.
yeah,
right, 'cause you damage the wall.
So they will further down gradient, but they need those amendments in. Functionally, either one of these things should provide a complete, either the soil amendments inside the holding basin or the wall around the holding basin and cap over it. Either one of those things should theoretically prevent the uranium from moving into the water.
From what they're saying, they seem to be relying on the injections of this zero valent ion to do most of the heavy lifting. And then, building the wall around the holding basin will be supplemental to that. I think that seems to be what they're focusing
Well, they're
on.
basically using that to keep the water out. So that the water doesn't move through the holding basin, it moves around
Right.
it.
And then the other issue that they talked about, was the PDI for the phase 2. And all those, boring locations and, samples that they have to collect. So I've got a couple of comments on the PDI, these maps here.
okay, what second,
No,
are we done with the meeting then?
I don't think we're done with the meeting, because the other thing
Okay.
we also talked about PFAS. So what has happened is that the federal government has come out with PFAS regulations that include more different types of fluoridated compounds and so there's 30 instead of 6, which is what the Massachusetts drinking water standard is.
Okay,
These are drinking water standards. So it has to do with what level you have to clean up the water. Because theoretically, the site water needs to meet drinking water standards when they are done cleaning it up. And there are some exceedances based on previous sampling that would imply that there needs to be more thorough testing. And there's one in the new set that wasn't one of the ones that they guessed would be in the new
okay,
set when they did the sampling in 2019, I think, was when they did the sampling. So the idea is that they're going to talk over the next few months with EPA and decide what sampling is going to get done as part of the April 2025 sampling. And then at that point, they will collect enough data, and then there'll be a discussion about whether it becomes a chemical of concern at the
Okay.
site or not. DeMaximus's position on this is that there's never been any source of PFAS at the site
That they could uncover.
that they could uncover. My question is whether firefighting foam might have been
Yeah.
something, and it could have actually been contributed by Concord Fire Department when they had the fire there, or it could have been something that they had on their own as well, but they certainly had fires over the years, so. I was actually just ran into, the fire chief, and he was saying he wasn't the fire chief then, but he was saying that they did have those foams, but the kind of fires that they would have used dry chemicals and not foams that had water in them.
Okay.
So it's unlikely that they use something there. Either way, the charcoal filters that pre-filter the water before they do the treatment for 1,4-dioxane at the two facilities that are doing the pump and treat are already removing PFAS there.
Okay,
They do that, so it's a question about whether it would need to be expanded and whether they need to do regular sampling for it.
They'll clean up the PFAS faster than they will the 1,4-dioxane.
They will.
So I don't think the PFAS is gonna be an issue.
So, yeah. The question would be if there's some other location that isn't part of the coverage area for those wells, that they might need to add another well. And they
I
do have the ability to do that. They're not at capacity right now.
okay,
looked at the distribution of PFAS, and it seems to be one hit, just down gradient of the holding basin. And that's the highest level on the site, the highest contaminant level on the site. And then other than that, they're just, the distribution is all over the place.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily look like it's, it's common, it got a defined source at NMI. It just seems, it could be just ubiquitous
Yeah.
in the environment.
But that's something they will be evaluating in a year, basically.
so,
And then we'll see how what other new contaminants come up too. So far, we've had PFAS.
Yeah.
1,4-dioxane. What else? Anything else? No, that's probably it.
Those are the two that have come
Yeah.
up since the rod.
Well, 1,4-dioxane is a big one.
So we did a site walk too, and they have basically dug out building A and a lot of under building E and the courtyard area. Those areas will get refilled so that they can dig out under C and D. Because they have to have a stable surface to work
right,
from. But that's not restoration right now. And that is effectively draining to the cooling pond right now for rainwater, stormwater, so it's pretty reasonable looking. Previously, one of the important things that we fought for was not to preserve any of the soils under building E for reuse at the site.
Yep.
They did preserve some soils from building A so that they could backfill
okay,
like clean areas, but we felt like there was just too much stuff under building E, and so the committee actually was pushed for get all of that off site, and they're doing that.
Yeah, which is a concession on their part, so.
Yeah. And there haven't been any surprises from finding stuff under building E either, and building E was built in 1985. It was after the site, it was an area that had been a loading dock area, that had been a practice our firefighting skills area. It was an area that was contaminated as it was, and the thought was that maybe there were things buried under it that we didn't want to know about, but so far they haven't found anything surprising underneath. They did find a Tosca area. So PCBs above a certain level have to be removed under I don't remember what Tosca stands for, but it's basically the
Toxic
guideline,
Substances Control Act.
right? And so whenever they find it above a certain level, it becomes you can't stockpile it somewhere. You dig it out and you dump it directly into the truck that's standing next to where you're digging it,
okay,
and it gets shipped off that day. And so they had found some of that in the cooling pond area and they basically sought out all of the areas that they knew of that were Tosca areas and have removed all of that. And they did find a hit under building E that was more than the Tosca minimum. And so they did remove that. They're not expecting to find any more Tosca stuff, but it could happen. And it's a big deal for them because it's really expensive and it changes the plan for how you deal with it, because you have to deal with it directly. You can't move it around on the site.
And then it does a lot for the confirmatory sampling, because you've got to be a little bit more, you've got to condense your grid. So instead of 30 by 30, it becomes, let's say 5 by 5, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But-
But it confirmed likewise a concern about underbuilding E.
Hmm.
Likewise confirmed that they concerned about being stuff under building E in some respects.
Well, that's not the kind of thing we would really be so worried about. PCBs were kind of a known.
Well, yeah,
already,
but
So. It's,
They've got out most of it. I mean, with the sweepings pile. And then the northeast area there, AOA 8
Yeah.
and 9, they got out most of it. And they've already pre-excavated the courtyard.
Yeah.
Where they had
It's really-
some hits in the courtyard, so.
it's amazing progress. The fact-
I just had a couple of comments. It looks like they're not gonna go back and resample the holding basin, the building A material. In the holding basin is when they excavated building A. They based on confirmatory samples, that's how they figured out what was clean and what was dirty. And the clean material from building A got dumped back in the holding basin.
right,
And then now that's covering what they call the principal threat waste, which is the nasty stuff. But you know, our approach was to ask them to go back and to resample that material from building bay, they went into the holding basin. Because I don't think that the pre-characterization sampling is rigorous enough to determine what stays on site and what goes off site. And I'd like to have them. They're gonna do the same thing with buildings B, C, and D. Is they're gonna do a 30 by 30 foot grid, and based on the results of that grid, they're gonna determine, well, this can stay on site. And, you know, this has gotta go off site, so, and I don't think that's rigorous enough.
So he's talking kind of about two different things here. Basically, they took material from under building A
And
and
dumped
they
it.
used it to fill up the holding basin
Right.
to level. And they consider this clean based on the pre-characterization,
Right.
which isn't as stringent as the confirmatory sampling.
It's not as stringent as
But-
what they did in AOA 8 and AOA 9.
Right. Because they tried to do confirmatory sampling for AOA 8 and AOA 9 because they're considering it
Done.
permanently done, and
Right.
it's not going to be inside a cap. This is gonna be material that's gonna be inside the
Right.
wall and inside the cap.
right.
And their view on that, EPA's view on that, after us saying we'd like that stuff characterized better, Len suggesting that they dig it out, is no, we're not going to dig it out. We like it just where it is. And
Right,
that it's characterized enough. to be
that's
inside the cap.
EPA, that's EPA's.
That's
opinion.
EPA's view,
Position,
and that
right.
they are the decider. on
Right,
that one.
exactly.
We
So-
have brought it up
So they didn't back us up on
a
that.
bunch of times, yes, and there have been a lot of things they have backed us up on, like not preserving soils from under building
From
E.
building E, sure.
They
yeah.
are, what I said about them moving soil from one area to another, you know, what's come out from building A that is clean is preserved on the site. So that they can put it back and move stuff over from, so that they can have a level area to build, to dig in building C and building
Right.
B. That's theoretically still not confirmatory sampling.
No, it's not.
And it will be
And-
much easier to dig more of that out. In other words, they will still do confirmatory sampling when they're done.
Right,
That is a staging situation. So I don't think that those are comparable.
No, I mean, the pre-characterization sampling, there's a chance, I mean, there's always a chance you can miss something. No matter how much sampling you do.
Right, unless you sample everything.
Yeah.
Unless you sample everything, the whole thing, you know, and then it wouldn't be samples, it would be
Right, so,
the whole thing. But, you know, I just think that, you know, once every 30 feet. For the pre-characterization sampling is not gonna be stringent enough, and then what they're gonna do is that stuff. If they determine through the pre-characterization that it's clean, they could stop getting it placed on site. Which might be a ground surface.
Mhm.
So if they miss something and they've got a stock at ground, you know, stockpiles of ground surface. And spread as backfall on ground surface. You know, you're getting, that's an exposure right there.
so, but when they do the final. Certification, likewise, they're not testing everything. What is
Right.
the area, how do they,
The Maximus sent out a 2-page. It's kind of like a little memo, and it had pictures of, how they're gonna do their 5-point sampling.
Mhm.
And this was probably a year, at least a year ago. And I looked through all the stuff that I had at home. And I haven't been able to find that, but that's kind of critical because it describes in pictures.
The confirmatory sampling.
Yeah, how they're gonna do the
The end
confirmatory sampling.
sampling, not
Right.
the pre-characterization.
Right. Does anybody have a copy of those two?
I don't
It
even
is-
remember it, so,
Yeah, I
but
don't remember.
Fred,
either.
do you,
It's not in,
We saved a bunch of maps, I don't know, but you're talking about things that had this grid on them like that?
well, it had a grid on it, but it was hypothetical grid of how they were gonna.
Yeah,
How they're gonna complete their confirmatory sampling, and it was a lot more stringent than one sample every 30 feet.
can you look that up and have? it for
I
the
haven't been
September
able to,
meeting?
I haven't been able to find
Talk to
it.
Karen about it?
I can do that. I can do
how
that.
much more stringent was it? Was there a sample at the intersection of the?
There was a sample at the intersection, and then there was a within that, there was you know, I think it was a sample every 10 feet, as I remember.
I remember
There-
10
in
feet
some
being-
locations.
Yeah, I think
they
it
had
was-
where they had a hit before. The grid was a finer grid.
Yeah, it was definitely a finer grid. I think it was, especially along the perimeter of their, excavation area. I think there was a 10 foot along the perimeter. But anyway, whatever, it was more stringent than what they're proposing for confirmatory sampling. And I asked them about that.
What they're proposed, the
What they're-
confirmatory sampling
This-
was
this
10
is your
feet, and
confirmatory
this is
sample.
30
Yeah.
30 feet is the confirmatory sampling for
Pre-
deciding if it's
Pre-characterization.
that
pre-characterization.
pre-characterization, okay.
Yeah.
So the confirm, I think you're mixing terms, I think that's
This is
characterization
pre-characterization.
versus confirming, which. From what you're saying, it sounds like it's more
More
not,
rigorous.
it's more rigorous, so therefore, I think we need to get a copy. We need to figure out if we have a copy, if not,
Yeah.
obtain a copy.
You're gonna do that.
Yeah, so I will do that.
You sure you're okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have a lot of stuff on, file.
No,
you
I
know,
would just
electronic
email
copies.
Kara and say,
Oh,
can
just
you
need
that.
remind me
And just
where
need
where the
Okay.
latest version of this is?
Okay,
I can't find my copy, but can you? please
yeah,
provide-
right.
Yeah.
If it was a whole document, I probably would have kept it, but just,
Yes.
you know, 2 pages
But
kind of
she
get
can
lost.
point out
in there.
what it's in and give you the list.
Yeah,
right?
that'd
Okay,
be, yeah,
so
that's
that
what
would-
we need to do,
Okay.
sure. Sure.
Okay, so circling back to the meeting of August 7th. Have we addressed everything
I
that
think
was,
we've addressed
okay,
everything. Oh, no, actually, one more thing that I heard about. Apparently, the town has been talking to them about where they could put septic on this site. And they pointed out that there is a septic system across the Gabion wall in an area that the reuse committee looked at and said, this is really something that should be restored naturally. It's, you know, that kind of thing, except that they don't really want to dig the septic system out if they don't have to. So they would be happy if the town wanted to, they still need to actually sample around it, make sure there's no hit around it, but
Right,
they're saying that the inside of it is clean, it could be reused. The reason that it's important is because the pipes go in the soil across the gabion wall. And the gabion wall is gonna lose height as part of the cleanup. Because it's unstable and they're gonna be digging into the side of it where it's contaminated. So they still think that it's, reasonable enough that you could have access to occasionally check the septic system that's there if you wanted to keep it as a septic system. I'm a little wary about that because I was under the impression that it was contaminated from use, that they were pumping stuff from their floor drains into it and stuff like that. But that may have been another septic system that was at the site that I think may have been closed. So I'm not actually sure about the details of that, but it's something that I guess the town staff have communicated with them about it and are potentially interested in it. So that's an area that we might want to make sure is really well tested when the data start coming out about that.
And not that you would know, but why would the town, I mean,
If the town were going to site a building there, why
Yeah.
not use septic tanks that are already there?
Yeah.
You'd have to lay new pipes to them. And in theory, you could lay those pipes as they are repairing the gabion wall so that you don't have to get a special permit to disturb a remediated area when you're doing it, so.
would you guys like to, submit comments on this, phase 2 PDI?
Did you have any comments? about it?
I've got, yeah, I do, I do, the first is, I don't agree that the pre-characterization sampling is rigorous enough to determine what stays on site and what doesn't. I think if they're gonna do it that way, they've got to come up with something like what they did in, AOA 8 and AOA 9 with their composite sampling, their, I don't know, what is it, 10-foot grid probably.
Okay, you're suggesting they fix it by using a finer grid.
Yeah, exactly.
a finer grid everywhere or just certain locations?
Well, I was under the impression that one of the things that did change in all of this, and is it in there, is that they're gonna actually trace drains. So in other words,
Yeah.
they're doing 30 by 30 foot, but if they're
Yeah.
finding conduits or drains or masonry or dry wells, they're gonna be treating those like a source and following them out.
Well, they're gonna get rid of the soil above that, I think. And then remove the drain or conduit. And then they're gonna have to, I mean, I would think, and that's probably one thing that we need to ask is, are they gonna continue to sample below the conduit down to a depth of 10 feet?
Okay.
I'd like to ask that.
It's not in there?
No, not in so many words. I'd like to actually have it. So that there's some surety there. And the other thing too is that there's a lot. There's a lot of here of, on buildings, C and D, especially this area here. Right here. Sorry. Right there. This area here, where they're not planning on excavating. And I'm just wondering how they're gonna handle that. This area right here. I would like, it says here that they are just gonna dig it up. Dig it up and apparently remove it, because they're not gonna do any pre-characterization sampling. I would like to just have a confirmation of that, and that's what they're gonna do.
So
Is
I
it-
think that's. They're saying, are they saying it's too hard to drill through all of that material there?
I'm not really sure, and that's what I'd like to get them to confirm that that's
Is this?
what's gonna happen, because that's a lot of soil just to dig up and haul away.
Is this confirmatory sampling?
This is gonna be
just
notice,
for uranium, or does it cover, the other contaminants too.
Yeah, it should cover all the.
This
the
is
other
not
contaminants.
confirmatory, this is pre-characterization. And they're.
Yeah.
And in other words, if you think that they're going to be using it for fill somewhere. And they're not pre-characterized, they're basically, you're saying there's a big swath of area, they're not gonna bother to pre-characterize.
Right here.
And it's,
the
and we
crosshatch
only
area.
care that they pre-characterize it if they're gonna be using it for backfill, right?
Right.
Right,
If
so-
if they're gonna
And there is
dig it
no
up,
way that they're going to use the building foundations of C and D for backfill. You know, I don't know that that's an unreasonable thing, is that they're going to dig it up and then look, because there's a big question, so if you recall what these buildings were, they had big machinery, this was their real work floor, they had big machinery, they had like pits where they would do water cooling of machines.
Yeah.
And collect from the water from the pit and clean, recycle it and clean it or whatever, the non-contact cooling water. It's supposed to be clean that ended up in the cooling pond and various things like that. And these pits there had been foundry things, there had been various extrusion devices, there were plenty of things that could have led to serious contamination. And so they're saying the whole building foundation is gonna get ground up and carried away, that there's no way that that's clean enough.
Right, but I mean, to Len's point, I think we just need to, and I haven't studied the map, chart map. Just confirm that they truly are, I mean, because E, we know they dug out and sent away. A, they didn't. A, they're using.
Right.
And B and C are sort of in the middle.
I think B and C are not really in the middle. They're expecting to
Okay,
find
just-
stuff under them and I
So-
guess the question is there a second phase of characterization after they remove the floors of B and the foundations in B and C and the floors in B and in C and D? And
Yes,
then,
yeah.
where they are going to actually do some characterization and try to save some soils underneath, or are they just gonna dig down until it's clean?
and then what are they gonna do? They're gonna have to take it offsite if they don't pre-characterize it. This is what they say about that. Areas within building footprints for which pre-characterization sampling is not proposed, that's this area in tan crosshatch, will be excavated below utilities and potential point source release elements. Confirmatory sampling will be conducted for these areas.
So I'm
What
gonna
are they
point
gonna,
out
what are
that
they gonna do with the stuff?
AOA 8 and 9 didn't have, they had, the only pre-characterization that was done as part of the original RIFS stuff. And so they basically dug out and out and out, did
Right.
confirmatory sampling, dug out and out and out a lot more, ended up taking 5 times what they originally planned as far as soil, because they kept finding stuff further out and further out,
Right,
including some Tosca areas that they were surprised by.
yep,
But that was the same model that you're talking about them using under C and D, is they'll dig it out and they're not gonna pre-characterize it because they're not gonna try to keep it. And then they're gonna keep digging until the confirmatory sampling says stop.
that's right, that's right. I would just like to, I didn't find anything about this in the text.
Okay,
So I'd like to just confirm that that's what they're gonna do.
you want me to write? Or you wanna put that in the comments, or do you wanna write the comments?
I can write them. I can write them and then forward them to you guys, so you can take a look at them.
What is the deadline for this one? Comment else?
September 3rd,
Okay.
so we don't have another meeting scheduled before this one, whereas we do have another meeting scheduled
Before the-
before the holding basin review.
That's gonna be the big one too, that we're gonna have to. We should actually come prepared for the
We
next
need to
meeting.
get Kevin Trainer to show up at these meetings. this is Crew's paid technical guy, and it would be nice to. Can you convince him to come to the September meeting?
Yes,
Oh, I apologize, guys, because we're talking, I don't Nick is on now.
Ah, who's Nick?
Hoppus,
Oh, hi, Nick.
well, he's
Sorry.
still connecting, so, hey, Nick. I apologize, it was
Yeah, hi.
right. Didn't see you on in the lobby.
Yeah. I didn't pick up the meeting time with Jane. Sorry.
So far, Nick, what we've done is approve minutes and talk about the site visit.
Okay.
And we are looking at the document that is the pre-design investigation for the areas of soil that haven't been done yet, which are basically the building foundations and the sort of rest of the
Okay, you're
area.
dropping it for me.
So we're on item number 4. Of the agenda, talking about the pre-design investigation. And the topic in particular we're discussing at the moment is Len has a concern about what actually are they doing underneath C and building C and D. And there is an understanding that they'll, as they dig it up, they'll be checking it, sampling it, and just keep on digging as they've done. Pamela, what building was that before they did that?
It was the open areas that are next to the Cranberry Lane and next to Minuteman Arc.
Okay, it's similar to what they did near Minuteman Arc and Cranberry Lane in those open areas. But we just want to make sure there's a confirmation. Len would like to ensure there's a confirmation that is truly what they're doing, because he could not find anything in the written material associated with the charts.
maps, yeah.
So. Okay, so. And Len is going to create comments of his own. And this is where I get confused with how do we do our comments when we're not meeting again before the,
If he
So-
sends out something for review, we can comment back to him directly as long
Okay.
as we don't share the information.
I won't send it out until I get an approval from you guys.
So everybody says whether they're okay with it or not.
Yeah.
Several.
And that way it can be a consensus,
Yeah.
an actual consensus, which we don't
And then we
have very
present,
often.
the comments at the next meeting.
Meeting, right, okay.
So what's the date today? 16th?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the deadline for comments on this report is September 3rd.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to get comments within the next week. And email them to you guys.
Yeah, and likewise, September 3rd is the day after Labor Day. So Tuesday after,
Yeah.
right, the day immediately after
Yeah.
Labor Day, so,
Right.
okay, so.
And what's our September meeting date?
September meeting date is the 20th.
We should come prepared to discuss the 60%. RD on that during that meeting
Yes,
and the time limit for submitting comments on the 60% is September 27th.
So we'll be able to discuss it and come up with.
And then come up with, and then send it out before that.
And again, I would really like to know what Kevin Trainor's opinion is on this. I was under the impression that he tried to talk me down when I said everything needs to go into the bedrock. As far as the thing, why are we putting it in the till? Why not all of it go down all the way into the bedrock? And his view of that was still that the till is similarly not porous the way the bedrock was. So he didn't seem to have a problem with that.
Tested until,
Hmm?
didn't they say that they've done a test?
They did, that's why they're trying, I mean, yes, it's cheaper not to go in the bedrock, but it also may be a reasonable. Proposal, yeah. So I would really love his opinion on that one before we before we try to push them to do something really expensive that isn't going to add to that perhaps will not add to the effectiveness of the remedy.
Well, we wanted from day one, we wanted them to drill and set the wall in bedrock, but they're really pushing back on this. They don't want to do this. They don't want to go that deep.
Okay. So on the circling back, so for the pre-design investigation, Len is gonna send comments on
I'm gonna send them to you guys.
the review before and then send the
Yeah,
comments.
and
We'll
then,
send further comments
you'll
on
get
it.
your input and then
Okay,
you can add,
And
if you
so,
think of something between now and then, you can add it.
so I've got that you're gonna talk to Kara to get the latest on this.
Yeah,
The,
on those
on the 13 foot, on the 10, the size of the grid for confirmatory sampling,
right,
right, to get the latest information. And that you're gonna write the draft of these comments, which is gonna say the pre-characterization is not good enough to decide on backfill using
Right.
the building A materials for backfill for,
because
the
that
building,
backfill
yeah.
material might wind up at the surface,
right,
and if they miss something.
and that you're gonna
Then
ask.
it's an exposure.
So that was comment one, was that the pre-characterization grid is not good enough to decide as backfill. You wanna know whether they will sample 10 feet below where they remove drains and conduits.
Yep,
And you want to, confirm that they're not going to be doing any pre-characterization below building C and D. But
Well,
that,
whatever-
but that
whatever
is
this area
because
is
they will
here.
do confirmatory, do it as a confirmatory sampling for all areas under building C and D. Right?
that's what it says here in the map, I just didn't read that as part of the
But those
text.
are the three items that
yeah.
you're gonna be asking
that's the
about.
three that have at least been raised at this point, yes.
Yeah,
Do you have any other things that you wanted to raise about the pre-characterization?
no, but I'll give these maps another look over. Cause I'm sure I can come up with something.
Yeah.
But those three areas,
Okay,
Okay. And again, our concern is,
oh yeah, one more thing.
yeah,
We'd like to, they're talking about the rails, I thought that we got rid of those a long time ago, but they're talking about the remedial action levels,
mhm.
which are just really confusing.
So what should they be talking about?
Well, I would like for us to be able to understand and review the rails and the derivation and where they came from. I asked this back about a year ago and we never got it.
Can you ask Kara about that when you talk to her about, in the same email where you talk to her about
the 5-point sampling.
looking for the confirmatory sampling grid? Yeah, looking for the derivation of the RALs.
I can do that. You probably forward that. Well, I think if we put that into the comments, that will get forwarded to D-Max.
Yeah, but you might be able to get something before
You
that.
might be able to get something before that. If you
Well, the
want.
rails haven't been developed yet. They won't be developed until the sampling, the pre-characterization sampling is done, but I'd like to have, at least, we're not gonna get any input into it. They're gonna set whatever rails they want, but I'd like to understand, do they come to this conclusion? Did you just pick a number out of thin air?
Okay,
Which
Yeah,
sometimes I think that they do.
Maybe the way they characterize it, London, is, you look, and I'm putting words in your mouth. I can't find the history of how this has been developed so far. Is there some background that I missed along the way? I mean, it's sort of,
Yeah, I suggest they put a table right in the text. Explaining, with the mathematics right in the table. So we take a look at it and say, oh, okay, I understand where those came from. But right now, it's just, I don't understand it.
Well, they get the concentration levels they're aiming at from other documents. There are government standards as to what's safe. Right?
Yeah, yeah, part of what
I
they're,
can't imagine that this is not in the feasibility study.
It's gotta be somewhere.
but if they're gonna talk about and doing the RALs, you know, they should present it in a forward manner, right?
So
We shouldn't have to go back to the
so-
RI to do this.
So maybe, well, again, maybe this is part of the question, the same question of that you asked Kara about. Whether where the latest version of what the confirmatory sampling grid looks like. You can also say, can you point me at the latest description of how the routes are gonna get developed?
All right, I think that,
So we're at least not looking back too far if it's in a more recent document, or if it's still something that is under review that it's gonna come out that will.
Because in my other job, we sit and pick around which rev of which specification are we using for this thing? What does the contract actually say?
I actually wrote in one of our comments, I wrote almost exactly that. I'm just gonna cut and paste it and put it into this,
Okay,
our second comment here.
Okay, no, the goal of that's not the comments for this document. Looking for the RAL information is where you're talking to. I mean, you could put it in the comments for this document too, but you want to go ahead when you're asking her about where the latest document on the confirmatory sampling is. You want to ask at that point where's the latest document that describes what how the RALs are going to get developed.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, I just
Do
don't
you want
think,
me to write that letter to her?
it's up to you. It's up to you.
You want me to do that?
yeah, I mean,
Okay, I'll do that.
how formal does it even have to be? I mean, can you just shoot
It's
an email?
it's an email with a numbered email, 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, but I mean, for that, I mean, right, just it's.
I'm not writing the things, but I'm just gonna
No,
write an
it's just,
email.
yeah,
I'm gonna
just an email.
say, we were talking about the confirmatory
Yes,
sampling
please.
grill. We want to confirm what document that's in and is it indeed a 10-foot grid? And we want to look at,
Yeah.
you know, what document has,
It's only 2 pages.
Yeah, so,
And I think it was actually only 1 page that was written on both sides. So it's not really a document. That's which is the reason I couldn't find it. Because it probably just got tossed out. And then the number of moves I made in the past few years.
totally understand that one, I'm still trying.
I'll do that.
Patty hasn't moved yet in 20 some years and I've moved 6 times, that's.
Okay. So I'll do that part and you do the
All right. Well,
thing, and you can actually write about the RELs in the comments as well if you
Yeah.
want.
So,
So that'll be a 4th item. On the
Mhm.
list. And we'll discuss the holding basin document at the next meeting. And was there anything else in the pre-design stuff, Len, that we said about the holding basin document that we should be looking at when we're reviewing that document?
No,
There was the question of where the wall keys in.
you're talking about the 60%
the 60%.
remedial design. I think we should just take a look at the whole thing
Yeah, okay.
and just, I mean, if
Path
they're,
design has changed.
they're
now.
gonna-
It's
if
only
they're gonna-
have a few feet of soil on top.
if
of
they're
it.
gonna push back and say they're not gonna go into bedrock, there's really not a lot we can do.
Yeah.
We've gone back and forth with this a few times. The question is, where is the till? But they've already done some supplementary sampling along the line of the wall. And hopefully they've determined where the till is.
We had made some comments about
I'm
the,
not sure going down to bedrock is all that great. I have a basement that has concrete wall and a concrete floor and it leaks at the joints. So if the concrete goes down into the bedrock,
it's gonna
there's
leak
a
at the.
joint there.
Hmm. So you think the till might work better?
The till might be leaking through the till might be equivalent to leaking at the joint of the,
Yeah,
Well, nothing's gonna stop it. It's just gonna be, is there gonna be less leakage with the till or the bedrock? It's not gonna stop completely.
it's gonna
It's not-
stop dramatically,
It's
though.
not the way the wall was designed is to completely stop it.
I mean, we do need to be
I'd like. to hear-
grateful that they're not making us decide, do you want a wall or do you want
I'd
the
like to hear what
amendments?
the contractors have to
Yeah.
say about this, because all this is being done out of sight and, I don't know how
That's
you
true.
monitor, you,
That's true.
how you monitor the joint.
Yeah. Well, you don't monitor the joint, you monitor what comes through on the other side. You look to see it's working by, I mean, I can't imagine you look to see it's working by trying to do some evaluation of seeing it. I think you look by what comes through it
You don't know that until after you've decided to.
until after you've done
build
it, yeah.
So, okay.
The other thing that we had said back based on your comments a decade ago was that that we wanted as much area surrounded by the wall as possible. Especially because it looked from the sampling like there was like a bulge of
Yeah.
Yeah,
contamination heading,
they
towards the
didn't-
river.
They did enlarge it.
and they did enlarge it. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a really nice. More of that stuff is inside, more of that stuff is going to be exposed to
Yeah,
directly to the amendments that stabilize it.
So is that all on the 60% design? Are we on to the next? The next topic,
What's the next topic?
the 222 Main Street Advisory Task Force liaison report of what's going on there.
Okay, so, so they are working on their report. They have not decided what their recommendation is gonna be. They're still expecting they're gonna make their recommendation in September, but the report reports all the different findings that and they're looking for the last few details that they're trying to track down. One of the things they're trying to track down is the price of regular insurance, whether, having insurance for some chemical spill or something at the site when it's a, damage, when it's already a Superfund site, those kinds of things. It's something that particular community members have been very vocal about, suggesting that the town will never be able to insure the site. But you get liability protections from EPA, so in theory, no one else seems to be worrying about that, but they're pricing it out anyway. Anyway, what the cost of that insurance will be, and that's one of the last things they're trying to cost out, and they're going to vote on their recommendation at their first September meeting. So, and the other thing is that one of the committee members has resigned, so I'm actually moving up from being a liaison to actually being on the committee. So, which I find really awkward. They're requesting that I do that, but I've been very vocal about how I really think the town ought to take the site, so I'm hoping that people will trust me to.
Well, we're kind of assuming the town's gonna take the site, the way that we as a committee are progressing.
We're
Cause
treating it
we're
like,
looking for the best cleanup of the
Yeah.
assumption that this is
Best
gonna be
clean-
town property.
Best
Best-
cleanup, it doesn't matter to me, I mean, yeah,
doesn't matter who owns it, I still
Doesn't
want to
matter,
clean
yeah,
up the
I mean,
best possible.
so.
Still want to be a squeaky wheel, but,
right.
but basically nothing has changed since they're still working on their report. And nothing has changed since our last meeting.
Okay, so,
I think on that subject, the comment that you made was the most important thing, and that was that if the town owns the site, then the town can control what goes on there. Somebody else owns it, you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, I think also that, you know, the town didn't own the site and we still had to read all the monitoring reports and pay attention to what was going on and be able to have our firemen respond there and things like that too. So we've spent a lot of capital already.
You know, the other thing too, this is it's gonna tell us a lot, the way EPA responds to this PFAS. Because this is the new contaminant, so we're kind of.
Yeah.
Looking at it right now, and, you know, are they gonna take the responsibility for it and have it you know, have it cleaned up as a contaminant concern? Or are they gonna say, no, you know, this is not site related and, you know, it's not, contractor's responsibility to clean it up, so this is gonna tell a lot.
But likewise, one of the benefits is it's somewhat already gonna be cleaned up anyways, regardless of,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And-
Well, and this is, it's,
Oh. Terry, do you have a comment?
Oh, I do, but I'm waiting for public comment, sorry.
That's
do you
okay.
have a comment about what we're talking about right
Just go
now?
ahead. We had a discussion before we got on that we, and besides that, as select board, I guess you are technically public on this one, but yeah. And go ahead and add your comment at the moment, Terry, and then we can.
Oh,
Yes, we can.
okay, well, I had a number of comments going back through the meeting. But I do want to thank Pam for, being on both committees. I think it's really a good development. I think we need more interaction between the two committees. For example, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I was at a community meeting and I think Bruce pointed on a map. There were still some areas where there will be restrictions about what we can do with that land, those areas. And they were kind of all over the place. It wasn't just the holding basin. It was a little bit here, a little bit there, and they weren't sure yet. And I think those kinds of things have to be nailed down a lot more and talked about between the two committees. So I have more comments, but I'll wait till the end. But I would like to see some real good interaction between the two committees before they finish their report in October. Because you guys are really the watchdogs and they need to really understand if you have any concerns or questions.
Thank you.
Are we up to public comment?
Well, after this one, we are actually up to public comments at this point in time, so, and Nick, I know you're part of the committee now, but likewise, I know being on Zoom sometimes it's sort of weird interacting. Do you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay,
So I have some more
yep,
comments.
go ahead, Terry.
Okay, so I want to clarify about the insurance. There are three types of liability, as I understand it. First type is for known contamination, and EPA is going to be covering all of that. The second type is for unknown contamination that happened back when I forget the name of the company now. StarMet was there. Things like PFAS that we didn't know about a couple of years ago, but it happened way back. And EPA will be covering all of that too. The only reason we need insurance, and it's still a big reason, is going forward, if the town acquires the site and something new happens, if some contractor of the towns gets through the wall of the holding basin, or if the town has a new oil spill or whatever, new things are what we need the insurance for. And it's a little bit tough to get that insurance. We haven't exactly found the right thing yet. So I just want to clarify about that. The select board will be doing a tour of the site on September 4th. And I think that's a very good development. We have some new select board members and even the old ones who have never seen the site before. For me, it was really eye-opening to see it, so. The most important comment that I have is that the town really owes your committee a huge mountain of debt that, you know, you're never going to get the thanks that you deserve because most people don't even understand all of what you're doing. But just today in your meeting, for example, I heard 3 comments. You're doing a real rigorous look at their holding basin cleanup, and I really appreciate that. I don't understand all of it, but it needs to be done, and you guys are doing it. Second one, fighting for the soil removal under Building E. That's terrific. I didn't really know about that. I'm really happy about that. And about the septic. Yes, if we're going to use the septic, we better take a really good look at it. So all of these watchdog activities, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And I did disagree with one thing. There was something that you're pushing back on that you might not win this debate. And somebody said, well, if there's not a heck of a lot we can do if they don't agree with us. I disagree with that. If you don't agree and you're concerned about anything, you need to tell the task force. This is another reason why you're interacting with them. You need to write it down or put it in your minutes, or keep a list of the things, because the town has a lot of leverage still. The EPA wants us to buy it or acquire it. And if we're not satisfied, if we have concerns about safety, then we need to speak up. And we don't have to acquire it. So we do have this leverage. Don't give up about it. Keep a good list of it, and certainly let the task force know so it's in their report too. Thanks again.
So I want to point out, Terry, that PFAS is a hill we're standing on pretty hard here and pushing back on. And if we had not, probably they would have just let it go and said, oh, it's being filtered out by the filters that are there. We don't really have to characterize it that much. And there are some of those things that are worth it and that aren't. And Paul actually did inform the task force about what was said about PFAS characterization at the site visit. So,
Right.
so we are communicating back and forth.
Oh,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm glad about PFAS. Yeah, there was a different issue somebody was talking about.
Well, I think the one you're talking about, Terry, is that Len's comment about the sampling and the concern on if the dirt gets put on the ground as fill on the top, it may have.
And they missed
If
something,
they miss something and put on the top.
that is a potential exposure.
Yeah, exposure issue, so.
Right. And there was another one, I don't think that was it. It was something about a wall.
So this is whether the holding basin wall goes all the way and keys into the bedrock, or if it
Yeah.
keys into the looser soil that's called till, which is directly sitting on top of the bedrock.
Yeah,
And
that's,
there are some places where the till isn't deep enough to actually do that, so in those places it will go into the bedrock. But the question of whether anything gets through the till any better than it gets through, water gets through the till any better than it gets through the bedrock is a pretty, they have some serious evidence that it's not getting through the till any better than it would get through the bedrock. So it's not a difference from that perspective. I do think there are times when we have questions about something and we're going to get an answer that maybe disagrees with it, and maybe it satisfies us.
right.
Or maybe it's a reasonable enough thing that if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but it is a a reasonable thing for them to decide.
Correct, I totally agree. I think, after you debate something, you might win and you're not gonna win every single argument. But if there's something major that you are concerned about, just let everyone in town know. But
Yeah.
if something reasonable that, you're not sure, okay, you're not gonna win every single debate. There's a lot of unknowns, I get that.
Okay, thank you. No more additional public comments, so therefore, is there anything else before we adjourn? Nick?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay,
So Nick, I hadn't heard that the town was interested in the septic system until Bruce told me at the site visit that someone had inquired about it. And in the past, we had looked at that as being an area that would get restored naturally. And it's fairly close to the bog, although it's kind of on the other side of the bog. It's probably not affecting the bog in any way. I don't know if the Natural Resources Commission would have an opinion about that. Whether
Yeah,
it's an area where they would allow us.
I sort of missed that, I missed that whole. Yeah, when I heard you talking about the septic system today, I'm really unclear of where that is. I don't recall anything about it. So offline, Pam, maybe you and I could have a
Okay.
conversation.
Yeah, so,
Update me
but
on that.
maybe you want to actually run that by Natural Resources, whether they would allow a septic system there. It's theoretically, still functioning, except nothing's flowing into it,
It's the Board of Health that does, it's the Board.
Board of Health that does
It's the
that?
Board of Health. Yeah, septic systems are approved by the Board of Health.
Okay, so you wouldn't
It's,
have.
natural resource
Wetlands
would
restriction on
only
it.
be involved if it was. Well. I need more detail, so let me, instead of doing it at the meeting, if you and I could have a phone call and point me at the right
Okay.
place, so I know exactly what the location is.
I think it would be both NRC and Board of Health, and I think Melanie Deneen is on this call.
Is
No,
she-
no,
No, just your computer.
or just a computer.
Oh, okay, well, I'm the liaison for Board of Health. I'll get in touch with Melanie and,
I will send you the same, an email about this.
thank you, I'll forward it to Melanie, great.
About septic systems, I had a new septic system put in 3 years ago. And the regulations change with time. My old septic system, did not qualify in any respect to what the new septic system had to. One thing is the height of the effluent discharge above the water table. That's above the maximum level of the water table, so
No backflow. I don't know.
the effluent discharge pipes are, you can't bury them as deep as is used to. That's why people have these mounds in their
Yeah.
backyards.
Yeah, I don't know. It may be grandfathered in.
Yeah, so,
EPA has all kinds of. They get away with all kinds of things of avoiding zoning and regulations when they're doing a cleanup.
Yeah,
So.
okay, so if there's no additional comments, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second,
I'll second that. Thank you, everybody.
thanks, everyone.